Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you are here. Pisces, welcome to your new moon forecast for Pisces rising, Pisces moon, Pisces sun. We're going to look at the main astrological themes for our upcoming new moon on March 10th, 2024, in the sign of Pisces, up to our full moon in the sign of Libra on the 25th of March, maybe 24th of March, wherever you are, and that will be the beginning of our eclipse season. So that full moon will be a penumbral lunar eclipse, and it kicks off eclipse season. So Pisces, sun, moon, and rising, welcome, and welcome back to those of you who are subscribed here, if you're a regular viewer, and a special shout out to those of you who are members through Subscribestar. I appreciate you so very much on professional level, certainly, and also on a personal level. It's been a very difficult month. I know that I am not the only one. I hear it every day. I am witness to it in different circumstances. It has been a brutal month. And so now we are at the cusp of a new lunar cycle, a new opportunity to set seeds of intention and to grow. I think as we are coming into the last quarter of the Aquarius lunar cycle, I think we're ready to set some new seeds of intention. Okay, so Pisces, this is going to be for you. We're going to look primarily at the Pisces rising chart as we go through the next 2 weeks, but just know that the full moon in Libra is the beginning of eclipse season, and I'm going to flash some promotional material along the way just to give you an idea of what's available, not only to people who are subscribed through Subscribestar and supporting Catalyst Energies, but also because the new moon and the full moon are inextricably linked. And so Pisces, your new moon, is going to be important to understand the upcoming full moon regardless if it's an eclipse or not. It's just going to have a very karmic element to it because of the eclipses. So let's start out here. We're gonna start out with, actually, in true Pisces fashion, where there are no boundaries to space and time. And folks who are Pisces identified are very, very naturally just attuned to being able to pass in and out of these realms very easily. We're going to go back to the last full moon, which was in the sign of Virgo. We're going to talk a little bit about Pluto and Aquarius, which is the 12th house for the Pisces rising. The 12th house is the Pisces house in a traditional astrological calendar, right? If the 0 degrees, the vernal equinox is 0 degrees Aries, comes all the way around, and the 12th house is Pisces. So the 12th house is you're no stranger to it, Pisces, but we are going to talk a little bit about what's transpired so far, the imagery around the new moon itself, and then look at the play-by-play leading up to the full moon on the 24th/25th. So taking it back to the old school. Actually, just like the intro to this video, if you've been around for a little while, then you already know that track and just the fade in was something that I was using more consistently not that long ago. So I don't know, I felt inspired in the moment, which again is kind of a very Piscean thing, to just be so close to being inspired, to the muse. And I thought, maybe, I don't know, let's see what it does to the algorithm. And if you've been around, if you've witnessed multiple transitions on this channel, feel free to leave a comment to tell me what works for you, because I do feel like that I can feel a nudge into upping the production quality so I can start reaching some more people, not for the sake of anything other than doing what I'm here to do, which is to be able to speak to large groups of people. And I know that these video platforms do make that possible. And I've met so many amazing people who are now in my life personally that started out as random viewers through various platforms. So I feel called to do so. Anyway, so let's look back, Pisces. So Pisces moon, Pisces sun, Pisces rising. We're going to look at the Pisces rising chart, as I said. And if you're a Pisces person that maybe is really hip to astrology and like really focused on that, then you probably already watched the Virgo full moon forecast, because no sign can really get away from their opposition or their opposite sign without it needs to be integrated. So Pisces people, understanding the Virgo, even if you're a Pisces sun or a Pisces moon, understanding Virgo is going to give you the antithesis that will allow you to find balance within yourself. We all have to do it regardless of what signs we're identified with. So the full moon in Virgo, if you haven't watched that video, actually this will streamline this whole process. The first part of it is definitely worth a listen as a Pisces person. You can certainly listen to the actual forecast itself, but I talk about the conjunction with Alpha Draconis or Draco. I talk about the conjunction with the star Regulus, which is the heart of the lion in the Leo constellation. The full moon not only was conjunct these two things, but also it was part of the lunar new year that is represented, at least this year, by the wood dragon. So there's been a ton of dragon energy associated with this full moon. So whatever came up for you, Pisces, that is often a shadow of who you are, is something that is the antithesis seemingly of who you are. It's important to integrate. And the only thing in the chart for Pisces rising right now is Black Moon Lilith, which is the lunar apogee. So it's that space within ourself that we want to how do I say this, that we want to project ourselves into, right? But it's the role of the divine flame, right? The Holy Spirit, as it were, to fulfill this at the right time. Just like the moon only reaches the lunar apogee, or that point that's furthest away from the earth, at the prescribed time. And if we try to fill that space with our, through our own desires and through ego, and not exact a little bit of patience, especially if we're talking about Virgo over here, then we tend to act out or overcompensate and disempower others in order to empower ourselves. And so, Pisces, one of the things that's very striking about this chart for the Pisces rising person is that most of the energy in the zodiac, which is in our solar system right now, is in the first three houses, which is individual identity. Now, the Pisces person is not only mentally identified, kind of like Aquarius, but is viscerally identified, like feels all the feels, like compassion, forgiveness, unconditional love, right? These are all the qualities of a Pisces archetype, because you're fully immersed in the experience as if it is yours, right? So the Pisces folks tend to exhibit those things, as well as being more artistic and inspired by the muse and easily influenced, and the boundaries between dreams and reality can often be nebulous and mutable. I mean, Pisces is a mutable sign. So whatever came up with the full moon in Virgo, Pisces, I would really encourage you to examine if you haven't already, because that, whatever was revealed to you about the antithesis of who you are and have been, is going to be important for you to be able to feel into and to acknowledge, and to, hopefully you've been applying some lessons to yourself based on that. Because who you are coming into is nothing short of a massive overhaul. And this new moon is really such a beginning that you're not even going to be able to wrap your head around the person you're becoming, or the person that you are meant to project out into the world, right? This is the first house is your subjective experience of I, or I am, and it's you as a seed, where all your potential exists in that encapsulated creative potential. And there's something new that's coming forward, that it's unboundaried, it's limitless when it comes to your potentials and unconditioned self-discovery. I want you to really listen to what I'm saying here. Unconditioned self-discovery. So Pisces, whatever was brought forward for you in terms of your ambition and your drive and who you are in relationship, perhaps with the full moon in Virgo, right? The state of your relationships, your one-on-one encounters, and the form of those relationships, that's really going to show you a lot of how to and who you've been, and how to balance that person with something that you know is coming, but you can't analyze, you can't wrap your head around. And there's something to the mystery about this, right? That is really important. It's very tactile. It's very unsophisticated in a lot of ways. It's the Sabian symbol is like a little kid petting the white lamb with the attendant there looking on, just kind of watching the situation, very encouraging, and I feel like that the power that you get out of relationship, Pisces, whatever it is, it was definitely worth paying attention to, because you are on a journey right now, something that, like I said, there's deep aspects of your past, and this has a lot to do with where Pluto is now, coming into Aquarius, coming into the 12th house for the Pisces rising. I mean, this is a very long-standing and very intense transit with Pluto in the 12th house that is going to force the individual to deal with the ghosts of their past, and that can be past lives as well. So it depends on, again, what else is going on in your chart, what you know about maybe those previous incarnations. So number one, the Virgo full moon, being very aware of what came up for you, what types of awareness and illumination are you applying now to a lunar cycle that really started in that area of what's left behind, what's in the background, what is your past, what is the unconscious, right? The collective unconscious, because it may not even be something that you directly are. It might not be your disappointment that you have to face. It might not be your disillusionment that you have to face. Maybe it is a past life that is coming through, right? If we're going to be talking about being multidimensional at a soul level, that means all of the time periods exist at once in the soul. And so all of those resonances all of those wave functions are accessible through our experience now. That might be what's coming through. It could be just in your past, the ghosts of your past. And this is what a haunting really is. So with Pluto in this area, I can't stress enough, Pisces, especially Pisces rising. It is a long-term transit. This is going to be decades, but deep changes in your psyche, right? How you deal with endings, how you deal with matters of the past, how you deal with the hidden things that are going to come up out of being buried, and maybe you're ashamed of them. Maybe you need to deal with them. Maybe there is karma from your past or past lives that is Pisces. It is going to come out. And part of this is Neptune in your sign, in your first house, if you're Pisces rising, has been purging the priesthood, so to speak. So whatever wavelength, whatever frequency at a past life, or the collective unconscious that you're part of, it's all getting purged. It's all being purified. And for the Pisces person, this means this Pluto in Aquarius is going to force you into facing your ghosts with some honesty here, because it's required now. And there are things that are hidden. There are, unconscious reactions that you aren't even aware of maybe happening. Like I said, this could be past life stuff. This could be something that is more part of the collective unconscious that is coming in. And powerful, unexpected enemies can come in with Pluto, because Pluto is the power of the soul, the power that is inherent in the soul, because the soul is infinite, right? Death, as we understand it, is just the repurposing of energy. And so it does reveal that there is a resurrection, that there is a soul that is infinite. So yes, there can be powerful or unexpected enemies, but it also shows, that shows you what we've been through, or what you've been through. I'm not a Pisces rising. I just spent the last how many years with Pluto and Capricorn transiting my 12th house. And boy, oh boy, a lot of this shit definitely happened. Dark, intense dreams, right? There have been, I feel like I could give like a treatise on, this is how you deal with Pluto in the 12th house for the Pisces rising people, because it's your turn now. Ask yourself if some of your secrets are really necessary, right? Do you need to be holding this in? And maybe it's time to let some of these things out. And you might even be lying to yourself, Pisces. That's another thing too, is it's just so easy to allow the boundary of your own self, your responsibility to just be nebulous and mutable. But that's not what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing seeing for the Pisces rising so much of the energy, personal planets, the sun and the moon, and then these larger transpersonal planets, right? Uranus and Neptune, the North Node, it's all in individual identity, right? We're not finished with the age of Pisces. We still got like a couple hundred years until we reach the age of Aquarius, right? When the vernal equinox is actually in the sign or the constellation of Aquarius, right? That the area of space known as Aquarius. We're not there yet. We're still in Pisces. So it's also important that, these cycles clearly are being worked through. So Pisces, whatever intentions you set for yourself as an individual, as a subjective I am, as a creative person, as the way that you adapt to the world as a living soul, whatever it is, it's really try to not limit yourself or stifle that unlimited potential and your unconditioned self-discovery, and realize, and this is, nothing acts alone or persists in a vacuum. And I think Pisces people, sometimes it's hard to realize that you as an individual are having the same impact as you are having when the collective impacts you, right? Pisces people are so sensitive and they just feel everything, but it goes both ways. And nothing acts alone. And that in consequence, there is this integrating significance, right? And so again, you're not going to be able to wrap your mind around it. I would say, try knowing that the growth in consciousness and in the person you're projecting yourself into the world is something that you can't condition. And you're not going to really be able to discover this whole new person that is free from your karma. Basically, I mean, like Venus and Mars, when they were conjunct in Aquarius in the 12th house, the cosmic egg, like it's been laid, right? It's been laid and fertilized, and Pluto is going to clear all the decks now, right? You just don't know exactly what this new version of you is, and that's what I mean. It's much more prudent. That's a Virgo word, I think. Very much so to keep that innocence about the way that you're interacting with the world around you, right? Instead of trying to force anything, or also so you're not just aimlessly groping at whatever, realizing that you have nothing to hold on to, because that is a really distressing and depressing place to be. And I do, unfortunately, based on my own experiences in the last month, I mean, that's not going to stop. So if anything, some of it's going to be solidified for folks with this new moon if they can't, be comfortable with the space of dreams, right? We are the music makers and the dreamers of dreams. And I feel that really strongly right now, but that starts with having that unconditioned self-discovery, which Pisces, it's all right here. It's in that you discover your relationship with everything else. Okay. So we talked about Pluto in the 12th house. We talked about the full moon that was conjunct Draco, the fact that it was the beginning of the lunar new year, which is the year of the wood dragon. There's intense dragon energy going on. And we have these upcoming eclipses. The next full moon is an eclipse. So a couple other things to keep in mind here is that Mercury as well at this new moon. So this second house, 8th house, is about your resources, Pisces. And it's about projecting what is and projecting your value out into the world, especially because that's like a very Mars quality. Mars rules your second house, Pisces rising, so because it rules the sign of Aries. So right now, Mercury at the new moon in your sign is now in your second house. So the mind and the mental energy and the relationship with the immediate world around you, in terms of ideas, communications, it's all going to be kind of focused now on your creative potential and how, as a resource, right? It is something that is not you. your creative potential is not who you are. You are one with source, right? But you come into this experience as a seed of creative potential in this human body. And that is what is output or projected into your immediate environment, and is what is, right? That's what you have a relationship with. So Mercury, there's just going to be a lot of mental energy. Now, keep in mind, if you don't already know, Mercury will retrograde in the sign of Aries. So there's going to be a lot of time here, Pisces, but that's not going to happen for a little bit, at least, not during this next 2 weeks. So Mercury is in Aries and is going to do something right after this new moon, which is going to come into a sextile, a 60-degree angle with Pluto. And this adds a lot of depth and intensity to your thinking and conversation. And so, the need to develop this inner security, which enables us to meet unexpected crises. This is where Pluto is sitting, 2 degrees Aquarius, an unexpected thunderstorm. So again, this inner security develops because we usually do have to deal with some sort of unexpected crisis. And Mercury, also, your mental energy, when Mercury comes through the second house, your mental energy can be a resource. And this particular degree of Aries is about the capacity, because Aries is in the purest sense of the word, subjective. So 2 degrees of any of the signs is its antithesis, and it is completely objective, the capacity to look objectively at oneself and other people. And the Sabian symbol for 2 degrees Aries is a comedian reveals human nature. This is why comedy is such a important performance art form, and also comes under so much scrutiny, because it's about holding the objective mirror up to us, right? That's what the comedian does. It reveals human nature back to us in a way that allows us to understand it objectively. So your capacity to look objectively at yourself and others is, I think, going to be a resource in and of itself to really dive into these serious and very mysterious topics when it comes to the deep work that is going on for the Pisces people in their karmic field, basically. The probing and penetrating nature of your mind can uncover secrets and plots. And again, we're talking about, the back end of things with the 12th house. We're talking about the unseen, the house of endings, the collective unconscious. So if you're able to use your intuition and your intellect and be able to look at yourself and others objectively, it's really going to help you pick up on things a lot more quickly, to make those connections, and use your mind as a resource in and of itself. So, and it is powerful, and you could easily abuse this if you wanted to, taking advantage of other people. But I don't see that for the Pisces person with this transit. I see this as an opportunity to use that as a mental resource to really look at this topic of your buried past and the things that haunt you and the past life karma that is coming up right now, to look at it objectively and realize that's not what's happening right now, but it also is influencing the full experience at the soul level. And that's just as important. It really is. So like I said, the sun is conjunct the moon. This is how we get a new moon. We've talked about that. And it's also going to conjunct your ruling planet, which is Neptune. This is all happening on the 10th, which is what day? Sunday. So when the moon is conjunct Neptune, this is just, you become so sensitized in that moment, because the moon is your personal emotional landscape. And so meeting Neptune in Pisces, you become completely, it's like you feel all of your individual basic needs just fulfilled and satisfied in that moment when it comes to identity. Which I think is going to be very helpful when it comes to the new moon itself. But there will be a necessity to still have that objective viewpoint, especially when the moon comes and makes that conjunction with Mercury, because that's going to happen as well throughout this whole day on the 10th. So let's look ahead at that actually and see where we're at here. Because there aren't a ton of transits along the way. What you're going to find, Pisces, is that there are a couple really high ticket transits, but it's pretty mellow this like 2 weeks leading up to not the eclipse, the equinox does happen during this lunar cycle. That's going to be something worth paying attention to. The sun and Neptune will come into conjunction as well. They will both square the moon. That's going to be St. Patrick's Day. So even between now and the week ahead, it's pretty mellow. So perfect opportunity to just be in a tactile, very innocent relationship with life around you, and to not push it, not try to intellectualize it or rationalize it, not try to force it into anything, not feel bad about it either. That's the other thing, right? Don't feel bad about enjoying the moment. That's what happens when you're haunted by your past. You are fixated and focused on imprints and images, although very important and real, they're not what's happening right now. And that's part of the thing too. Again, if you have past life stuff coming up, or even just past in your own past, or a familial past, right? An ancestral past, it's still not what's happening now. And that's the beauty of free choice, is that we get to make a decision in every moment, how we move forward with what the soul has already provided to this experience. So Mercury and the moon coming into conjunction at that same degree where it's going to sextile Pluto. I mean, it's just going to make it that much more, your emotions can become more sensitive and changeable when Moon and Mercury come together. So you can more easily form close attachments emotionally to other people. You can enjoy reminiscing. There's really strong emotional bonds at this time, but they also can cloud your judgment, and you may find yourself being too objective, or maybe not being objective enough. How about that? You don't want to make a lot of important decisions. You just want to, keep in mind that things are going to keep coming up, right? And they're going to come up through you emotionally in these areas of individual identity, right? And it's going to have a lot to do with Pluto over here and what it's digging out of, like this very deep karmic past for the Pisces person. Now, Venus is going to enter your sign on the next day, which is Monday, March 11th, and that's nice. I think that Venus coming into Pisces is not a terrible thing, and that kind of brings that beauty, that sense of meaning and value to who you are as well, comes into the picture. And it's really just moon transits that whole week. Not to say they aren't important, but we don't get to like I said, a high ticket transit until the first quarter moon, which is on Sunday, St. Patrick's Day. How many people are not going to work on Monday the 18th? That's what I'm wondering. So this is a big deal. So that first whole week really is opportunities to kind of reflect back on those connections between Mercury and Pluto, really, to be like, can I look objectively while also deeply experiencing things at the soul level, and not allowing myself to be pulled away from the experience in its most raw form, right? Which is very difficult, especially if you are learning things about yourself or things are getting dug up. Imagine when the comedian tells jokes that really make you squirm and are uncomfortable because they're true, right? And they're like, damn, I gotta really face that, that's the mark of not to be offensive for the sake of offensive, but the mark of a really good comedian or stand-up comedian, I think, and writing too, is to bring that out. So that whole week is that opportunity leading up to this Sunday and first quarter moon, which will be in a square to the Sun-Neptune conjunction in your sign, Pisces. Whew. Now, talk about increasing your sensitivity, your intuition, your empathy. This is going to turn any Pisces person into the caring, compassionate, kind, intuitive, empathic person, right? People are really going to be, I think, drawn to you like a moth to a flame. And you can either get very interested in the spiritual world. You can find yourself really wanting to be around people, but it also you can be affected by your environment very easily. So you have to be very mindful about setting boundaries, and who you are around, and making sure that if you can, be around people that allow you to have that fluidity in your boundaries, and you can identify yourself as, all of your needs being met, that you're full, that you're in flow, that you have surrendered to divine source, and that you're emanating that, right? The sun is in the first house, is shining. So again, this has a lot to do with who you're around, and it depends on the people and conditions. I know for me personally, the night before this happens, it's going to be a really fun family event that, it will allow these types of, openings to happen. This is still, at this point, this will be like my second house, but it's close enough. It does sublimate the ego, which again is a great thing, but you don't want to be taken advantage of, because this is again one of those transits that like you feel so full and abundant, and you're really shining, like you're really emanating that trust and surrender to divinity, that other people may kind of try to come in and take advantage of that somehow. So just be aware that your imagination is very heightened, and it does sublimate the ego. So if you can't be around people without the risk of negative people draining your energy, which can be very depressing, it can scare you, it can make you feel ill. If you can't be in that space, I mean, there are other ways to practice escapism: going to the movies, reading a fiction book, for instance, right? Doing some sort of creative art, or just letting it flow, right? There are lots of ways. Now, this is where it gets in. So that in itself is intense. The fact that the moon in Gemini is in a square there, oh boy. Pisces, Pisces, Pisces. Now, the moon in the fourth house. I mean, very sensitive, very deep feels here related to family bonds, your root system, your core, where you feel like you belong. Now, the thing is, this first quarter square has the potential to really allow the Pisces person to completely accept the release of unbearable pressures in this realm, the family realm, the traditional past, those family ties, or the family of origin, right? Because that's what the fourth house is. It also represents the core of who you are, and where your personal power comes from. It is a crisis in action, and so there may be a struggle here as you feel this need to be released from this unbearable pressure in this realm of either family or home of origin, or your family in general, or just these bonds, right? Whatever they are, or even just, to transplant your root system. The fourth house could just be likened to your root system, some sort of bankruptcy, right? That you are released from unbearable pressure. And because the sun and Neptune coming together is really going to give the veneer, and sublimate your ego to the point where you're just like, wow, I am one with everything, and everything is provided for me, and I just, it's like a fertile garden under the full moon, and you'll just be emanating that, and you're living that, and just completely at one, feeling and projecting yourself as if you're one with everything. But there's going to be always this nagging thing that will either be very large or not so large, but very deeply felt, that there are aspects in terms of where you belong, where you feel you belong, your loyalties, your commitments, right? This fourth house can also be the emotional bond of your marriage, for instance, right? There's something there that needs to be released. Wow, what a St. Patrick's Day for sure. So first quarter moons, what do I do? Right? What do I do? And it's not an either or, because squares, you just lean into them and you grow because they're so difficult. So just, it's going to be an interesting weekend. Let's just say that when it comes to the first quarter moon. Now the moon will come into Cancer. And then the next big thing we have is 2 days later, which is the vernal equinox. So the sun comes into 0 degrees Aries. That also means that and this is on the 19th, by the way, Eastern Standard Time. So by the end of the day on the 19th. So in some places it might be the 20th where this happens. It just depends on where you are. The sun will have moved into Aries. So, and of course, this is a equal balance of light and dark. And so for the Pisces rising person, especially, the sun coming into your second house is, there is a balance of resource here. And I think that even if you yourself project and are completely aligned with the resources of God and divinity, and they're just emanating out of your personality, for instance, and you're really feeling it, you still have to live with and be aware of and manage your root system as you are in a physical form right here, right? And the root system is what draws the resources to the plant, right? It is the connection to the earth. And the sun coming into your second house, well, this is the earth, right? The second house represents the fixed earth property. And for you, it's all creative potential. So there's something you're really going to have to admit to yourself, Pisces, when this third quarter or this first quarter square comes along, because you might be presented an opportunity to cut something loose in these areas, to transplant yourself, to cut some roots back in order to be released from an unbearable pressure. But there'll also be a sense that no matter what, your spirit is infinite. And the Neptune part of it is just going to wash over your sense of self. And there's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, if you have good people to be around and there's some sort of event in your life, especially because it's St. Patrick's Day, wow, I can see how there'd be a lot of joy and really positive interactions. There's a lot of camaraderie. There's a sense of, revelry, I suppose. You're enjoying people, but, with alcohol involved, oh my gosh, you're really also going to get all of the negative aspects of being around people like that as well. So that might come out just in that way. Who knows? It's going to be different. What I've noticed and observed is that the real challenges happen at the quarter moons, and the new and full moons are where we come into a new beginning. And so it's more of the ebb phase, and the flow is happening as a result of the challenges that we get with these quarter moons. So just expect challenge, and then the sun comes into your second house, and you become very identified and sustained and expressive in terms of those resources, your creative potential. So there may be this moment where you have to release yourself from somewhere that you have felt secure and rooted in order to really start identifying with the new creative potential that's coming in, right? And what you're here to offer the world. Now the sun is going to sextile Pluto too right after that, and we just talked about that with Mercury. So again, there is a determination and a purposefulness to you achieving your goals. And so you can get very obsessive and compulsive with the sun sextile Pluto. Here, we'll look at the next day here. You can get kind of compulsive sun sextile Pluto. But again, so there might be even more of a just determination to be you know what, I am going to think about this objectively. I'm going to find a way to express myself objectively, or to utilize that objective capacity as a resource and really identify with it. But it also, it can be to address something very difficult, right? And this, it's one thing for the mind to kind of have this position, but then with the sun here, it becomes something that you can actually feel a need to succeed, right? And it's very much an increase in power. That can be a real benefit if you don't abuse it, right? You don't want to misuse this energy because it could really result in self-destruction the next time you experience something challenging with Pluto. And believe me, there's going to be plenty more. If you use your power to help other people, especially groups of people, this transit also deepens your interest in solving mysteries. So you can gain benefits regardless, right? As long as you're really identified with and recognizing the experience, the need for the experience to be objective. And then you can start looking at those past behaviors, those past life energies that are influencing you right now. Now, it is going to get a little hairy here, because what you can see is that Venus and Saturn come into a conjunction in your sign, Pisces. Now, this is not easy. So, isolation when it comes to relationships. So what I do see here is that you may have to be more of a symbol, even when you feel kind of isolated and alone with people. There may be people that are not really okay with some of the decisions you're making. Perhaps those relationships are really changing. And so that's why I say, go back to the full moon, because that showed the Pisces person quite a bit about who they are in relationship and how they feel in relationship. So relationships do suffer the most with a Venus conjunct Saturn, but there's going to be a testing by distance or separation, and certainly an inability to connect meaningfully. So you yourself will be kind of like a sword in a museum, right? You're a symbol. You are a symbol of God's will operating through your own action, right? But I do feel, I just get the sense, Pisces, that something here is existing relationships are going to be tested, and you may feel isolated and sad, and issues involving guilt or disloyalty, right? A healthy relationship will easily pass the test, right? And could lead to more significant commitment. That absolutely can happen. But if it's on shaky ground, right? I don't know about that. Sadness, painful experiences that you endure right now, especially when it comes to your personality or how you express yourself, they lead to greater understanding of mutual love and respect. So this could it could go either way, but there will be a test with Venus conjunct Saturn, even if it is in your sign. And Venus does really enjoy being in Pisces. The Saturn element is making it very much a karmic responsibility and a sense of my way or the highway in the first house. So it's just a lot of serious matters that need to be attending to. This also could be about money being tight, but since it's in your sign, Pisces, unless you're a sun Pisces in the second house, you could find that money might be really tight in this situation. And so learning to budget would be important. Now, Mars comes into Pisces right after this as well, leading up to the next major lunation, which will be the full moon. So we're at the equinox. We have Venus conjunct Saturn. Pisces, again, unconditioned self-discovery, right? And you cannot be conditioned by the elements of your past, even if that's your past lives. And there are aspects about where you've been rooted, either emotionally or otherwise, that really you're going to feel the need to cut loose. Okay, and it's going to be very difficult, and you may seem cold to other people or unavailable, right? Just like a sword in a museum, nobody's picking that up and using it. It's a symbol of something. So, but that also can inspire serious respect from people in your life as well. So, when Mars comes into your sign, though, that is, there is, especially in your first house. So Mars is a first house planet, right? Mars rules Aries, and Aries is traditionally the first house. So Mars coming into the first house, it's just a projection, easy projection of self into the world. But, the drives are spiritual and emotional, and spiritual maybe with Mars is so good, emotional too, but when you're acting on instinct with emotions, then it can go all kinds of different ways. So output is variable, especially because the output is subjective and it's the output of the self. And there's going to be a lot of variation in your energy with Mars in Pisces, but at least in your first house, things can get kind of complicated here because you're trying to project self where there is so much nebulous undifferentiation. But again, this has to do with you as a person, Pisces. So Mars coming into your sign I think that it does give kind of that drive for those spiritual, emotional goals, and gives you the courage to project yourself, right? to not be afraid to just be fully yourself. And I think that's a good thing. Um, the last transit I want to talk about before we get to the full moon, which is on the 24th, is again Venus is in a sextile to Jupiter. Now these two planets are considered benefics. They both have very beneficial energies attached to them. This is going to be one of the, so it's been very difficult, I think, up until what I'm reading is a difficult time for the Pisces people. It'll be very easy to just kind of like release yourself into the dreamscape, right? To just let it all go, or to get into this Black Moon Lilith energy in Virgo and try to control everything in relationships. And it's really about finding that balance and knowing that there are big changes. There are huge changes that are happening and that are ongoing, and some of them are more immediate, especially that first quarter moon in the 4th house. But then you have Venus in your sign in a sextile to Jupiter, which is actually it's the co-ruler of Pisces. 16 Pisces. In the quiet of his study, a creative individual experiences a flow of inspiration. Okay, so this has come through just like, in an artistic type of experience, right? Venus does often rule those very material expressions of creativity, but it also can just be you yourself tapping into the inner source of inspiration or guidance through your body, right? Through your senses, right? Not necessarily getting it through your mind, but also getting it through just your experience. Jupiter in Taurus, on the other hand, is 16 degrees Taurus, is about the inadequacy of past knowledge, right? 16 degrees Taurus is an old teacher fails to interest his pupils in traditional knowledge, right? So where is Jupiter? Well, it's in the 3rd house of your mind, right? We haven't talked about any of this area until just now in this whole thing, right? So now we have Jupiter in Taurus, which is the 3rd house, mind, communication, data transmission, learning, language, interacting with your immediate environment through your nervous system, through your cognition, right? It's the territory of Mercury. This is that moment before the full moon where you're just like, oh, this is a transit indicates a lot of good luck, and you might get some sort of like gift. And I would say it's going to be like a creative gift, an inspiration or guidance comes right into, some sort of clairsentience. You just know. And it has a lot to do with the fact that what you've known and what has worked before in terms of the way you speak, in terms of the way that you transmit information, that you process information, that your empirical data and how you work with it, how you communicate with people, none of that is actually going to matter. It's inadequate now in a time of crisis. So this connection between Venus and Jupiter in this moment leading up to the lunar eclipse is, socializing is favored, right? Feeling good, feeling attractive, making friends, especially Venus in the 1st house. You're very attractive, very inspired, right? It's just going to be written all over you. But I also feel like that it'll just be a sense of knowing about yourself. And all your interactions, especially in terms of your communication and what's right around you, are really cooperative and satisfying. You may not know what has worked in the past isn't necessarily adequate for where we're going, but you at least trust, and you have an experience, a very palpable experience in yourself that is inspiring, that you have guidance, right? And this is a really, really great transit. There's good fortune and there's growth, and you can apply it to all kinds of things like higher education. Setting off on a journey is favored. Long distance travel, I wouldn't say necessarily just because for Pisces rising, because Jupiter is in the 3rd house. So this has a lot to do with your individual identity and how you make friends, how you interact with people, how you communicate, how you interact with your daily environment. knowing that it's changing and that you may not know exactly what that's going to look like, but you get this sense in who you are, that you are inspired, right? And then we have the eclipse. And the thing about this eclipse, and I'm going to leave it here, leave this here, is that there's there's a shadow cast on the experience of being able to internally formulate or visualize what we want, right? And if we don't accept that the shadow of the earth is distorting what otherwise would be a full revelation about that, because we have this very strong one-sided urge for stability that the sun in Aries is going to represent, if we don't realize that this is a very deep soul-oriented journey that is going to go deep underground for the next 6 months and hibernate basically and incubate at a soul level, then yeah, there's going to be some frustration. And the Pisces person may find themselves kind of reverting back to all the ghosts of their past. It's not to say that there won't be things, that there will be things, that the change is happening. Right now, Pluto will retrograde back into Capricorn one more time this summer into next fall, but it'll be done after that. It'll be fully in Aquarius. So there's still some very, very loose ends to tie up in terms of the institutions and the power, the overall power in your social settings, right? The cohesion of your social settings with the 11th house. But the change is on its way, and there's deep buried stuff here, like I said, that's coming to the surface, Pisces. And it will be very important, just like with the new moon itself, right? You're not going to be able to fully visualize it all quite yet. And there's aspects that are going to go deep underground with the eclipse. That's just how these eclipses work in terms of the astrology and the energy. It is like hibernation, is like incubating. It's not your standard monthly, like, oh, the month goes through and you grow and change. This is very deep. So you have to be able to trust your own intuition and the guidance and the inner inspiration. And I do feel like that Venus sextile Jupiter we just talked about right before this lunar eclipse will be that moment of swelling and expansion in a good way, of like, oh, I know that I have the big picture here is that what I have done in the past in terms of communicating and learning and knowledge, is what I've learned in the past is not adequate for where things are going, but I know what it feels like in my body to be inspired, to get the transmission, to tap into my own subjective strength, because that's going to be necessary to hold that as the eclipse season starts, because those energies, like I said, are going deep underground. They need a lot more time to process down in the unconscious. And so you have to be able to trust yourself, Pisces, and that can be very difficult if you don't know who you are in relation to everything else around you. And so the tactile sensation of petting the little white lamb in and of itself suggests there's me and then there's the lamb, and this is what it feels like when we come into contact. But there is definitely me, and there is this little white lamb, and I'm having an experience, and so is it, and it's very innocent and it's very unconditioned. But it also suggests that there is differentiation, and that's what happens when the seed is fertilized and spirit comes back into the living vessel. So you don't know. You don't know what it is right now, Pisces, but you have to surrender and trust yourself that at the right time, everything that is meant to be linked together will provide what it needs to provide for each of us. And that's how the grand design really works. So, Pisces, I'm going to leave it there for you. One thing I'm going to share with you is if you go to the website, and it's linked in the description box below. If you're interested in a reading for the upcoming lunar cycle, either a half hour or a full hour, there is a sale that is available to this time to the Pisces Sun, Moon, and Rising people. So if you're interested in the lunar transit forecast at the sale rate and you are a Pisces person, you can go to the website, go to the services tab, you can find it, and then you can book it online. We still got, what time? It's Tuesday. We still have 5 days to the beginning of the lunar cycle, so there is time to get some readings out. So in the meantime, if you're interested in any other services, I am offering readings now and distance Reiki sessions. Everything is in the description box, including links to my website, which has got everything all in one place. So Pisces, deep breaths, my friend. Big change on the horizon. Who you've been, even if you have a direct experience of it in the here and now, is not who you are and not who you can be. And that's something to keep in mind as we all move forward into these really trying and confusing, but also just remarkable times. So Pisces, thank you for being here. I really appreciate all of you so very much. Pisces or not, I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.